some wise person on the internet told me connection before content is pretty
Huh.
important for,
Huh.
isn't that
Huh.
really good?
Yeah, that's clever.
All right, here we go. Something that makes you feel young at heart.
Swimming in the water. I at 7 in the morning was like going for an open water swim, and the person I was swimming with was a good bit slower than I was. I just met her, and so I kind of swam up ahead, and then she always felt bad. She's like, and this was our arrangement. She's like, yeah, you swim up ahead, and then we'll catch up every once in a while. And she's always feeling bad because I'm waiting around for her. Meanwhile, I'm like having a blast, like a child, like floating in the water, like flopping around, like this is the best. And she'll catch up and be like, "Is there anything better than this, Allison?" No, nothing. Yeah, so just in the water, there's something like I have to imagine going into space. The first time you ever actually feel true zero gravity in space, how do you not be like 4 years old when that happens?
Yeah.
That's how I feel every time I go in the water, which is why I go in the
What
water a lot.
something that makes you feel old at heart.
All growing up, I watched my dad roll out of bed and do like 10 push-ups and 10 sit-ups in the morning. And he was like trying to keep his back like strong and healthy so it didn't ache. And now I wake up in the morning, I'm like, ooh, that didn't feel like it used to. And so now I'm rolling out of bed and finding my own routine to, yeah, that's silly. That is silly. I'm also fine
If
with it. Like, okay, I know
Yeah,
these are meant to be quick questions, but
that's
like
okay.
we moved to this new city and went to the gym, and there's like 7 guys in the locker room that are all over the age of 70. And like the amount of things, like horrible things that were said about being old and how terrible it is to be old, it was like that was 95% of the conversation. And I know that there will be reasons when I'm 70 to say all of those things. And I just really don't want to. And if you're 70 listening to this mid 30-year-old talk about this conversation and rolling your eyes, I'll probably roll my eyes at this in the future. Okay, I'm done.
No, that's okay. I think it's in mid 30s. That's when everything starts to ache and
Yeah.
like you wake up and you're like, "Whoa, did I pull my lower back in my sleep? Like I need a new pillow." So you're not alone. If we were to peek into your childhood bedroom, what's an item we would find?
Oh, this is a crazy one. My mom, who's an artist, who like was convinced that the 4 walls in our room was actually just a blank canvas for her to do what she wanted to do creatively. Mildly aligned with what we would enjoy too. So I had a rock wall. She found wallpaper that like made rocks, and there was like a little loft thing. It sounds like a crazier bedroom than it was. It was like a pretty normal bedroom. Normal. What is it? Okay. Rock wall. So actual raw wallpaper that looked like rocks, but then physical rock holds that the only way to get into the loft was to like climb up the wall and into the thing. Yeah.
Cool.
It is pretty cool.
An article of clothing you love but your wife doesn't.
Oh my gosh. I have a tank top from Naples, Florida that I got 20 years ago, and it is like hanging on by a thread and fit me 20 years ago, and I'm just so committed to keeping it around. Yeah, pretty much every time I put it on, I have to go downstairs and find scissors to like cut some giant piece of it off because it broke off and is hanging. Yeah.
Have you worn it yet walking around the lake that you now live by?
Pretty much twice a week I wear that shirt.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is something you find strangely satisfying?
Oh, interesting. This is such a disgusting one. This is so
Uh-oh.
disgusting. I'm
Oh
not even
no.
I'm actually going to say this out loud. So there is, if you go this is like, it's family friendly disgusting.
Okay, great. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah. So, you go to the doctor and you like can't hear and you like have some earwax. Somebody thought this would be a great idea to like record videos of earwax removal. You can find them like very easily on the internet, and it is the most polarizing video I've found. Like there's like 20 to 30% of the population that is like, oh my gosh, like that's so like I feel like I can hear better just like watching this disgusting video. And then 70% are like, you're a freak, this is terrible. Like you. Yeah, but and here's the meaning, Heather. I think I find it so satisfying because it helps people listen better. How's that?
Sure, you keep telling yourself that.
Yeah.
That's okay. That's all right. A fun way you've recently used AI.
I lead a couple like open enrollment things every year. One is called Engage to Educate, this series of workshops where I walk people through these 5 ingredients to make engagement easy. And someone 2 hours ago reached out and said, "Hey, Chad, I went through this. It was awesome. Have you considered like making a certificate of completion?" And I'm like, I could send this over, and this could take Taylor like an hour to design something up in Canva and make, or we could go all out and like do something official for next year. Or I could just plug in her name and send a link to the program and say, ChatGPT, can you create me a certificate of completion? And it did it, and it did a pretty great job. And I'll probably send that right back to her.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
A quality in your wife you wish you had more of.
I'm sorting through the list right now. She is so patient. I am not a very patient person. It is like Achilles' heel for sure. So my chief of staff, Kim, who has since moved on to a new role, we parted very amicably. I asked her for feedback for the next person I hire. And she's like, Chad, working with you, like anybody who works with you is never going to find a person like you to work with. Like it's so incredible, but my God, you are so impatient with things. And she didn't say it quite like that. That's how I interpreted it. Yeah. So I think like slowing down. So I have like a picture right on the other side of my camera. That's this friend artist who creates these like 3D art sculptures, and the like an image of a workshop, and in the like a wood workshop, and the kind of mural on the back of the workshop is slow is fast. And so this is for me just a constant reminder. I need to remember that like actually the way to move more quickly is to move more slowly and more deliberately and thoughtfully.
All right.
Patience.
All right. I got 2 more. The Littlefields invite the Italianos over for dinner. Who's cooking and what's likely on the menu?
Once I survey dietary preferences, we're probably ordering pizza.
Nice.
Yeah.
We like pizza.
And not even okay, ordering pizza. Kate would never allow that. But I would advocate for ordering pizza. I like the casualness of like we order and there's a buffet out on a table and we all just like grab stuff and eat. Like if we're going to a dining room, I'm going to do everything in my power to go to a not dining room and like create a more comfortable space that's also not in like a 10-person table. Because when I'm facilitating, I'm like, don't have a 10-person breakout. There's way too many people. And yet most dining room tables for like a bigger family thing or like a feast table. And so you have this like one at a time dynamic happening way too naturally, which is, not good.
Okay. A special memory involving water.
This morning and yesterday and the day before that and the day before I just moved to a new place that's right by south of Lake Erie, or just like a couple minutes from Lake Erie. And we moved here in late May and the water was 56 degrees Fahrenheit. And I have been in the water nearly every day since we moved here, going for swims, paddle boarding. So it's actually the memory, which is maybe more like foreshadowing. Like this is the first place I've ever lived out of 5 different places that I'm like, oh, I will be here for the next 30 years. And that's a very foreign feeling to me. And so my memory of the last month and this tide of water, I'm like actually seeing just 30 years of being around and by the water. And it just makes me very happy.
All right. Where did the obsession with water come from?
Hmm. So definitely inspired by my dad, but I think pretty passively. He wasn't like, hey, you should swim. You should swim. In fact, I asked him, I was like, how did you convince me to swim? Because he was a swimmer in high school and college. It's like, how did you convince me to swim? And it was like, I actively didn't. Because I wanted to, I would love for my kids to swim. I will accept them and love them just the same if they don't, but I'll also be psyched if they do. And so I was asking my dad, like, how did you nudge us into this? And he, from his recollection, which is a little shaky, doesn't feel like he did much to get into it. But I do remember I grew up in Massachusetts, scuba diving. And I remember at age 10, you can get certified to scuba dive when you're 12. At age 10, he was like, once you can swim 75 feet underwater with no breath, then you can get certified to dive, because I want you to feel like if you're 75 feet underwater and you lose your air, that you're like, it's all good. I'll make it to the top. I might have the bends, but I'll make it to the top. So they're just like, a lot of water growing up, I guess. I do think it is, for me, this maybe related to the slow is fast. It's like the combination of meditation and skydiving. It's like super exhilarating, life-giving, life-flowing, and extremely peaceful.
There it
There you
is.
go.
Imagine, if you will, you're holding a phone, or maybe you have one in front of you, and a magical AI generated Instagram reel starts playing, and it's a highlight reel of your life and career, mini flashbacks of meaningful, pivotal moments. What are you seeing as you swipe through?
That's really interesting. It's like a bunch of people repeatedly, like in a small group or even a bigger group, just repeating the phrase like, wow, I've never said that to anybody before, or wow, I've never thought about it like that. It's like, it's the phrase that might come after, like right after, like a pretty major or insightful aha. And so when you're reading a book or a blog, or you like watch a short video and you're like, oh, it's interesting. Like none of the comments in the reel would be, oh, that's interesting. It would be like, whoa. So there'd be some synonym to whoa, something that like stops you in your tracks, that there is like some insight, some shift where your life is like cruising along in one direction, and you've like had a moment or a conversation that is like, oh, I can't keep going that direction. Now I'm going this direction. Just over and over again.
Like a series of whoa pivots.
Whoa pivots.
Whoa pivots.
I'm changing the company name. Whoa pivots.
There it is. Awesome. Well, you've
Do you
been
need a new name for your
making.
podcast, Heather? Whoa
I
pivots.
should. I mean, I have a lot of
Yeah.
whoa pivots. I tell you, honestly, I've come up with so many creative ones. I thought about calling it confidently wrong because I am a lot,
Ooh.
but I
There
like whoa
is
pivots.
somewhere I have a book it's like do it wrong or something. I have a friend that wrote a book like
Oh,
confidently wrong is pretty great.
yes. Yes. And
Yeah.
my husband told me that one day. He said, he said, I admire how confidently wrong you are all the time.
Huh.
It's like, thank you. You know what?
You know, it's this is
Thank
this is
you.
catchy too with like you've asked two questions about AI. AI is very confidently wrong. And so there's something interesting about the like, there's we can take a lesson from that not that we should spread misinformation, but that action precedes clarity, right? And so like go do something, let it be wrong, and then let the feedback of Earth correct
Yes.
that direction. Yeah.
Yes. If you ask it, by the way, and say, "Are you telling the truth? Is this factual? Is this an actual quote?" It'll tell you no. It'll tell you. It'll call itself out all the time. But you
Oh
have to be
no.
you have to ask it. Did
Huh.
you make this up, or is this actually a thing? And it'll tell you that it's
Fascinating.
that's wrong.
I'm going to train it to just ask itself that every single prompt I give it at any point in time.
Yes.
It's like, yeah.
Yes. Yes. Okay. You've been making YouTube videos on connection for what, 11 years? Is that right? I was going back.
I actually
Plus
picked
one.
it up. I've been running We and Me for 12 years, but the YouTube, like going all in on YouTube, was actually a COVID project. It was like all the in-person stuff that I was doing got canceled. I
Oh,
was like, I
cool.
have some extra time. I'm just going to start leading little mini workshops on the internet, in the form of pre-recorded YouTube videos, answering people's questions. So yeah, so
Okay.
hardcore like 2020 and on.
Okay. I'm curious how your understanding of what connection is and its purpose has evolved over those 12 years.
The biggest evolution is actually one of those whoa pivots. I got introduced to a new mentor recently who is the founder of mastering.com. And he keeps a pretty like low profile. His name is Blake. Mastering.com is like mixing and mastering music. So he's an audio
Oh,
engineer, like engineered 35,000 plus songs, put in his 10,000 hours. And he created basically a degree alternative education program in how to mix and master music, which became mastering.com. And he sold it for a whole bunch of money. And now he walks around barefoot mentoring entrepreneurs. Is a short story. So, kind of on a whim and taking a bit of a chance, I flew to La Jolla, and his mentoring is like largely in person and literally like walk the day with you, um, with the intent of finding like the one thing that you really like, cutting through all the noise of what you're doing and all of your efforts and thoughts and ideas around business, and being like, through all that noise, like, here's the signal, like just quadruple down on this, simplify everything, and go like all in here. I'm oversimplifying a little bit, but
sure.
that's kind of the pitch. And I went with the chance because like that was an alluring proposition to me. I am interested in lots of things. I like start up many projects, and some of which I probably could just not, and that would be okay too.
Yeah.
And anyway, like 4 hours into walking around, he confronted me with something that was very hard to be confronted with. And it was like, hey, Chad, it sounds like you've built a business like based off the premise of connection. And it sounds like in the last several years, like you've done a lot to keep yourself at arm's length from everybody that you're quote helping connect. And
Oh,
you're like, yeah, ooh. I was like, wow, yeah, and like in the spirit, and kind of almost as an excuse of like I've got young kids, and so that was my excuse for traveling much less or flying out really quickly after a keynote, to make the flight home for dinner or bedtime or something like that. The YouTube videos, right? It's like they're really useful and people love them, and it's like here's a practical idea, go run with it, but it's very much designed for consumption,
hmm
and there's not a lot of opportunities to. So anyway, in short, what Blake offered to me is like, I hear all the noise of your business, and the way that you talk about the Connector Summit, that is signal. It's like, go
Mm,
super all in. Like, it is the Connector Summit. It is the space where people connect, and I'll be doing some very fun revealing and sharing and launching of some stuff in the coming months around that. But yeah, so for me, I'll offer one more answer. Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn, asked Sam Altman, the co-founder of OpenAI, in like a back of the internet video interview, meaning not a popular interview before ChatGPT
yeah.
kind of exploded. Reid asked Sam, fast forward 10 years, if AI is doing a large majority of a lot of things that we are currently doing right now, especially as white collar workers or knowledge workers, what will we be left with? And Sam had clearly thought about this very deeply and answered like two things with conviction. He was like connection and recreation. And the idea being like, I've thought about it a lot. I don't see any version of ChatGPT or any prompt that will give you the same like depth of humanity and like social satisfaction as a really good connection with a person. I know, and people have already like started to chat with it like a friend, and there's that relationship, but I don't believe that will ever be enough. Like infinite amounts of conversation, like at the core, you'll still know this isn't a real person. And up to this point, like let's just say in a hypothetical extreme, that your only friend is this very advanced AI who just goes with you everywhere and knows you better than anybody, and knows your deepest secrets and your aspirations and everything else, and like loves you just the same. Even if that all is true and that's happening, which at some point in the future, I think that will be a very real reality. There'll be like a being living in people's houses. I still think that people will know that thing is fake, that it is like a created thing, and that it's actually the idea that like an organic matter creature has understood and heard you and is actually like wants the best for you, and it wasn't their programming or algorithm that created the compassion or love that you're receiving.
With
Whoa.
Whoa, I know.
Yeah.
With that enlightenment that you received from the mentor, because I participated in the Connector Summit, and absolutely fantastic. I can't recommend it enough. But I'm curious if that enlightenment is inspiring you to shift the nature of the connection in the Connection Summit, because very much so it is, and correct me if I'm wrong, the Connector Summit, and certainly the majority of the content in terms of YouTube and the We Connect cards in your videos, is all in service of creating connection in a group setting for the purpose
Mm-hmm.
of building more participation, engagement, trust in a room live, to make that group meeting more productive and enjoyable and purposeful. Is that enlightenment shifting now to you're going to shift away from the train the facilitator space and get more into like the deep human connection?
No, and I'm adding in I'm wanting to add in the depth of human connection. So the Connector Summit you participated was a pre-Blake, like rapid prototype of an event.
It's amazing.
And it was great, and I loved it, and people really enjoyed it. And so I was already signaled to me that like we should continue this. But there's what you're pointing at is a very interesting and valuable tension that's worth unpacking here, which is like, I just got an email the other day. I led just kind of for fun and for actually leaning in toward more connection, a live YouTube debrief of one of the videos that I published the other day. And so instead of just publishing the video and just having it out there and leaving it to comments or email replies or whatever else, just hopped on Zoom with 100 people and said like, hey, this is not a training. Like, we're just going to split out into breakouts. But in the midst of breakouts, like I'm facilitating and I'm like dropping a couple nuggets, and this person emailed me and they're like, I'm like such a learner, and I found myself like bored in my breakout at the conversation, because it's only interesting to me if the people in my group have value to offer or something like that. But I loved coming back and hearing what you had to say. And she was being very honest, and she was like owning her stuff. She was like, I recognize this is like not great. But my reply was like a pretty curt, like, how did you know that they did not have value to offer? She sent a very long email and I sent a very short email back. I was like, how did you know? And so this is the tension between what I've found over the years, for better or worse. If I send an email right now to 50,000 people and one said, I'm going to host a 90-minute session where you're just going to connect with other subscribers and have some really awesome conversations, spontaneous, and meet some really cool people. And that was one email. And then I sent an email out that said, I'm going to teach you like 3 really practical ways to lead connection before content in your own spaces. Like one is very content first and one is very connection first. For
Mm.
better or worse, connection is not great marketing or entry point language. Like 5 people are going to come to the, hey, we're just going to like have a meetup. But 1,000 people are going to come to the, I'm going to teach you 3 of the best practices for connection before content, etc. What's funny is I'd probably do nearly the exact same thing in both of those sessions. And so for me, the way that the Connector Summit enters the world is still going to have the like content focus, and it will still have content sessions, but it will be a blend, and I will work very hard to frame things and create the structure and context so that the breakouts, which is just, you know, in a virtual context, like that's just the moments where you're connecting with somebody else, not just the person,
Mm.
one person talking. We're going to work very hard to set the culture that breakouts, like the intent of the breakout is to actually connect with the other people that you're with. It's not to mine value out of your group. You'll get value out of your group, but like it's not to mine value out of the group. It's not to assess whether this is a good conversation or a bad conversation. And I think in a dialogue, like if we adopt the mindset of anybody in the room wins, then everybody wins. So if we go in with that philosophy, and so like that, and then probably a list of 10 other framings around how we enter a breakout space, that feels important to me because I get it, right? I get the like, I can say something that's really like tight and alluring and practical and immediately applicable and like rooted in solving somebody's problems because I've worked in the space enough. I kind of like have a sense of what people are struggling with to some degree. I'm always learning, but I have that sense. Whereas somebody in a breakout, like they feel like an unprepared facilitator or the unprepared presenter, which is exactly the dynamic I want to break down. It's not actually about presentation in a breakout. It's not
Yeah.
one at a time presentation in a small group. Connection is something very different, and it has to do with the way that you're present in that moment. And so the way that people show up and are present and their intent that they bring into that conversation has probably the variable that has the largest ability to change how that goes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Uh, it's interesting that I don't think that that's an anomaly what that woman felt. I mean, even outside of a, you know, a setting like the Connector Summit where everybody's coming for, you know, to grow themselves, likely professionally. I know a huge base of your audience are people like me who facilitate and lead meetings and all of those things. So naturally coming to something like that, you're wanting to get you're coming into it with a need professionally that you're trying to learn that thing that you need to grow in a space. But beyond the scope, beyond just the realm of connection and service of facilitation or professional growth, there's something to be said though about the value and impact of connection is in the ability to stay present and make it about that person. Because I think we're self-serving even outside of those. You know, you could be having a conversation with a family member, a friend, and we're wired to seek information that benefits us
Mm-hmm.
versus just learning to learn,
Mm-hmm.
just asking. Like there's almost always some motive, like ulterior motive that's driving the questions we ask or the questions we don't ask. So, but the practicing being present is very hard. And I know this just from my own application of all of, you know, connecting tips, whether it be yours or other experts out there. And I now teach on the subject too, that when you're in a conversation, it takes energy and
Mm-hmm.
and it can be really easy to be like, man, this is starting to get hard and I'm not getting much out of this. So you just kind of like shy away
Yeah. So you
versus
become
just,
resigned. You hit the
yes,
escape button, or you like start ignoring your tune out, which is for
yes.
me the language of like we're constantly oscillating between the state of like critic, consumer, or contributor. And as soon as you're like, when you're like, oh, I'm not getting that much out of it, like we've slipped into, I'm critiquing this, as opposed to like, what can I add or add to this space? And so it's like, I'm not getting what I need out of this conversation. So it would be a social risk, but it would be awfully valuable to everybody else in the group if you said like, pause, like, I just realized I came in here like really hoping to like talk more about practical ideas. I'm wondering if anybody has a story of something they did in the last few weeks that like really helped engage people. That is a way that a participant can be a facilitator. And for me, it is that mind shift, that crossing the threshold from I am just a passive participant, or I'm just consuming, or I'm just here to assess and critique, into like, no, those actually aren't going to serve me or the group. They're not going to like add anything. Selfishly, they're not going to add anything, and selflessly, they're not going to add anything. But if I become a contributor and I'm like, what can I offer this space? All of a sudden, the breakout got more valuable for everybody else and for me. And so everybody won because you took that social risk. And so I'm actually, as I'm saying this out loud, I'm having an aha for setting the tone for the Connector Summit this year, which is like, if you find yourself in the place of like critiquing a breakout, or actually wanting to be in the main content session, or wanting to go back, awesome. Like you actually have awareness that you landed in that place, which means you now have choice to get out of it, because that's a dark place that's going to lead nowhere good for you or the other people in your group. And so shift back into like, what are you actually wanting out of the conversation? Like whatever you're wanting back in the main room, listening to me or somebody else, what is it actually beneath that? Because if you like replace me with somebody else, you probably still get something that you need. And so what is it that you're actually needing and wanting? And can you ask your group for that? Because I bet they have something to offer on the topic.
Yeah. Might it also be a play on I know your one of your steps for engagements is content design for contribution.
Yeah.
But it almost makes me ponder if it's connection in service of contribution, or connection designed for contribution versus consumption. There's John Maxwell has he does this thing called, he has this framework called the leadership loop, which I've semi-adapted into a connection loop. And one of those stages in that loop is learning, right? When you are intentionally asking good questions, and the magical second question, and you're trying to learn things that matter to someone, but it's in service of one of the other steps, which is contribution. And in the conversation of leadership and influence, that's before you can actually influence someone. You have to be in a position where you are selflessly adding value and contributing back to that person based on something that's important to them. And one of the greatest ways that we just contribute to people is being present and taking an interest in them and asking them questions, and not just waiting to be asked or for somebody to give you something that you need.
So what I'm hearing you say is that maybe the most profound contribution you can invite people into is, don't come with your super wisdom, like smart presenting, I have lots of value to offer. Your contribution is actually your presence and curiosity. Contribute that. You don't need to contribute anything else.
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty spot on. It's also something that everybody has the ability to offer, which is important, because it is true that some people know less and have less experience and give less good advice. I went to a conference once this like summit, bunch of other speaker, author, facilitators, and they very unconventionally, they had color-coded name badges based on your annual revenue, which was like, at first was like, whoa, this is serious. Like going to a work conference and your salary is posted on your name tag. And they were really deliberate. It was one of the best events I've ever been to, and they were really deliberate about it because, and the framing wasn't like, if you're at this level, like this lower level, it's not like, oh, poor you. And it's not like, oh, look how awesome I am if you're at the top level. It's that you should be asking different people for different levels of advice. And so somebody who is has a really large, let's say this, somebody who's just started and is wanting to grow a practice and write their first book and start a podcast and whatever else, it's luring idea to create an online course and to like sell that, but like nobody knows who you are, and so no one's going to buy the online course. If you ask somebody who has a huge list and has been doing this for a couple decades, they're like, yeah, like half my revenue comes from like products and online courses. It's like, that doesn't really work for someone who's right out of the gate. And so you get really bad advice. And so what I'm saying is,
Sure.
that's a metaphor for like people have lots of different stuff on their name tags. And so there is, in theory, there is like a right person to ask the right question to. And so but you don't know who the right person is, and you don't probably know what the right question is. And so I think the next best thing in a connection mindset is bringing your presence and curiosity and the belief that it's possible this conversation will be the best conversation you'll ever have for that person and or for you. Like, just go in with the mindset that it might be, it might not be. That's for sure. That's for sure possible. But it also might be one of the best conversations you've ever had. But I can guarantee it's going to suck if you have judged it as a conversation that doesn't have value and like that's wasting your time or you shouldn't be in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like also we always, when we talk with people, it stays at a very either surface level or very work level. And when we're meeting new people for the first time, we're asked so many of the same questions. And that's fine if you want to learn about, where I'm from and what I do. But one thing I have learned just in my own connection journey from teaching it and learning from what you do and then applying it is it's so much more fun to learn about the human side of someone beyond what they do and
Mm.
beyond what they can do for you. And when I have had the moments to practice that and ask those connecting questions that really kind of surprise people, just the immediate like smile or reaction that you get from them is, you can tell it's meaningful for them to be asked something totally different than all of the normal autopilot questions that we tend to ask. But you have to be that to be able to, you have to go into those conversations with the skill of those questions and
Mm.
understanding the impact of those questions. And the purpose isn't to consume or to learn or to get something from someone. It's just to be present with someone in the moment, add joy to your own life, to theirs, in that little bit of time that you're together with them.
So can we actually like drill down into this a little bit more? So you just said the
Yeah.
sentence like, the purpose isn't to get something out or to mine some value or information from them. It's just to, and you like pause for a minute, because I do think the like getting clear on what is the actual purpose, and is connection in enough of a purpose, or do we have to add something else into that to be like almost the excuse to connect? And so it's like we invite people over for dinner, which actually is because it would be weird to be like, in some context, it would be weird to be like, hey, do you want to just like come over and sit in a circle and talk? That would be an unusual, socially non-typical invite for most people. Whereas inviting somebody over for dinner is like, oh, yeah, sure. I would like to get to the place where we're like transparent enough about our need and the mutual benefit of just connection. Introverted, extroverted, doesn't matter. Like having meaningful conversations that we find like relevant and intriguing and are about stuff that we care about and actually impacts our lives and creates some of those whoa moments. I would like as a goal for society to get to the point where like, hey, do you want to like just get together and connect? And for that to be the sole purpose. But I don't think that's a very like normal accepted reason to gather.
Outside of
Maybe it
friends and
is.
family.
Uh,
Right?
Even with friends and family, like it's like we're gonna have a family reunion, or we're gonna have like
It's
there's all
someone's
these other like,
birthday. We're getting
yeah,
together.
there's all these excuses. And if it was just like hey, you want to get together to connect? Oh, and by the way, it's so-and-so's birthday. But it's like birthday is the headline. That's what you're going to. Wedding is the headline. But really, like the underlying like deep human intention of going to a wedding is to like show your support for the rest of this person's life and relationship with this person. But
Mm.
but it's like, no, we're going to the wedding. We're like attend this ceremony. So we have, and maybe that's just shorthand because it would be like much more awkward to say like, well, what are you doing this weekend? Oh, I'm going to support the everlasting love of my cousin. It's like, I'm just going to a wedding. That's easier to say. Here's maybe what I'm getting at. I very intentionally, like, even though I built a business based on the premise of connection, I very intentionally like say the word loneliness almost never. Partially because right now, like, there's an immense amount of shame around the idea of being lonely, but there is an immense amount of loneliness and desire for social connection. And I think it would be really useful, loneliness aside, I think it would be really useful to destigmatize the desire to just connect with somebody else. And for that to be like, well, why? It's like, well, why do you go to the gym? So that your body is healthy, or like, why do you go on walks and why do you swim? And that's a really accepted thing to talk about doing. And even like, like, oh, wow, like you exercise. Wow.
Yeah.
Good for you. Mm-hmm.
And almost, I think there might be, I really like this space we're in right now, by the way, this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's something of value to calling out the weight of loneliness, though, because, and I've actually brought in, you say you don't say it a lot. Every time I talk about connection, I actually talk about loneliness epidemic. And there's a study that came out from Cigna, like, I don't know, last summer, and it said 61% of American workers or Americans feel lonely. 79% of Gen Z feel lonely. 1% of millennials feel lonely. And that struck a major chord with me because, the word engagement, like employee engagement, like, yeah, it's down. Everybody knows it's down. It's like, things are so bad now. It's like, we're not even disengaged. People are lonely. And that made me realize that one of my own killers of connection, like a stumbling block that I unintentionally or intentionally put in my own way, is just assuming that I already have a connection with them when I really don't, or like someone else is satisfying that human need for them. So I don't need to do that. And I will say, after hearing that statistic, when the moments where I'm cognizant of it, even with family, to think about, what if this person is that statistic right now? Like, what if, like, I'm having lunch tomorrow with my stepdad? Let's use him as an example. I talk to him all the time. What if he's lonely and no one knows it?
Mm-hmm.
Like, because I felt lonely.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you have too.
Mm-hmm.
And the times where we are most lonely is when we crave for someone to just ask us, like, what's going on? What can I do to help you? How you're craving someone to, like, please just ask me something so that I can reveal this and then you can help me. So there might be something there in terms of calling out the purpose of connection. One of them might be loneliness. I don't know.
Yeah, I think so calling that out, step one. Step two, doing something about it, or making some edit. And I think I'm hearing some background. This is a puppy.
It's Puppy. It's Puppy.
I don't
She's
care.
awake.
Just letting you know.
She's got, let me see if I can't secretly swap it out. Where's your bone, girl? Yeah, Puppy woke up and Puppy is awake. The cutest. Easy to play with Dish. Anyways, yes.
This feels like
I'll
an important
remove
part to leave in the podcast. I'll just say, especially considering
Oh.
this conversation, because this is how we actually end up lonely. is we create like our day is just filled with like work product related things, or yeah, it's like it's all focused on task, and there actually isn't the space to just be like, what are you thinking a lot about right now? But
Yes.
so I'll ask oftentimes, like after doing a question swap with the We Connect cards, I'll ask a group, how many of you, if you pass this person in the hallway a month from now, how many of you would be more likely to like pause and say hi to them because of this little quick chat you had? Every single hand in the room goes up. And so the idea is like so the offsetting of loneliness is actually really pathetically simple. It's like just create a couple shared moments in conversation and like things that you know about a person. Like the barrier between separation and isolation and being entirely alone and being connected is like 6 sentences, or like one sentence, like a question and an answer, like pierces right through that veil. It's not like a big wall that takes years to break down. It's like that one thing starts to get through it, and then if you want to like carve a doorway, like send a few more things. But it's pretty easy to drill through that wall. Drill might be an overstatement. So that's one thought. This is, I don't know if this is an aside or not, but I'm also, like part of my undergrad was in like rehabilitation and human services and psychology. And I remember learning, if somebody's suicidal, it's not, in fact, not only is it not taboo to ask them like, hey, are you thinking about killing yourself? Because it's like, if the person is thinking about that, they're already thinking about that. And so it's like dancing around that to be like, hey, like, you feeling okay today? It's like, it's almost more isolating as just being really direct. And so it's making me, I haven't thought about this in the context of loneliness, but, sitting down with, there are people in my life who I call friends, but I don't know that I am like, I have a deep connection with them, but I'm not regularly connecting actively as a verb with them. And so I have this established like connection as a noun, but I don't actively connect with them. And I wonder what would happen if I sat down and like ask people, and they were to ask me directly, like, hey, on a scale of 1 to 10, how lonely have you been feeling? It's like, I think, I had a mentor who said once that once you say something, half the power leaves it. So maybe announcing that in front of a group of 500 people might add a little bit of power and self-consciousness to it. But like in an intimate chat that's just at a chat, I don't know, an interesting thing to check in on people. I have a feeling that asking them would not make them more lonely. It would make them, if you did a study of like simple A/B test. In this group, you ask people if they're lonely twice a week. And in this group, you ask, and you didn't ask people. Like, there's group A, the experiment group, would not get more lonely because you were asking them that. I would be very surprised if that was the result.
Interesting.
If anything, I am holding the belief and finding the experience lately that our questions bring things to awareness. And once they're in our awareness, we then have choice over them. And so I think that one of the biggest things that in conversation, you kind of hinted at this in our email exchange before this, I feel like for the past 10 years, I've been really on about this idea of creating conversations that matter. And that's cool and good. And I still want to do that. And I'm really on right now, I think for at least the next decade, about this idea of actually creating conversations that create matter. So starting conversations that actually edit the future in some way. And so I went through, just as a personal study, and listed out a list of like 30 or 40 conversations that I had that I would point to as like, this was like a whoa moment, kind of life altering conversation. And then I jotted next to each one, like, what was it about this conversation that was so changing? And then I look back at the 30 and I'm like, okay, what are the characteristics of conversations that edit the future versus ones that just fall into the past? And for me, there are a whole variety of reasons, but the only one that I could find that was shared amongst all of them was the word dissonance. And it turns out there's a whole lot of research on cognitive dissonance. And it's like, so mentor Mark asked me what's something I'd like to do more of. My answer was scuba diving. I realized, oh shoot, I haven't gone scuba diving in 5 years. This is like a big part of my identity. I have put no prioritization or time to it at all. So either I need to, in order for life to continue and for that dissonance to be cured, and this is like psychology terms, like in order for that cognitive dissonance to be cured, I either have to lessen the importance of scuba diving in my mind and say, actually, it's not that important to me anymore, so that I can live with myself, or I need to get my crap together and go scuba diving. There's probably some middle ground too, but it's like the brain wants to be in harmony. It doesn't want to say, I love this, but I'm not doing it, right? The classic psych study to share this idea is about people who join a fraternity or a sorority and go through some level of hazing. And they love the fraternity afterward, because if they didn't love the fraternity after being hazed for 3 months, they'd be an idiot for going through all this pain to join some stupid thing. So they had to sort of justify the hazing and the pain. The fraternity actually becomes more amazing and awesome in their minds. So this is like the concept of cognitive dissonance. And so the loneliness question, when I asked you, are you lonely? There's inherent dissonance in that. I haven't met anybody who's like, I would like to be as lonely as possible. I'd like to be alone, great. But I haven't met a lot of people who are like, I'd like to be as lonely as possible. And so it creates dissonance of like, either you need to say what, like, I'm okay being alone for the rest of my life, or I'm going to go like Google kickball clubs and try to figure this out and put some effort toward addressing this. Whoa, puppy in the shot. And
the
it
cutest
is awesome.
Interruption. I
that
didn't even do it on
ridiculous.
purpose. There's no coming back from that.
I feel like it came after a pretty good like golden nugget in the podcast, maybe. So I feel like this should be a clip. This needs to be a clip.
Oh, that for sure. And yes, there she is. Okay, I want to come back though. So dissonance is what you've uncovered, an ingredient of creating conversations that create matter.
Yeah.
Is dissonance, is it the same as conviction? Is that kind of like a feeling you're feeling convicted when there's, I'm curious if they're
conflicted, so you don't have conviction.
Conflicted.
Yeah, you don't have conviction about it, and it's, I think, yeah. So it's, you are feeling conflicted, like. So if I were to ask you, and you can do this really directly or a little bit more passively, but if I were to ask you, like, what's a value that you say is really important, but you don't feel like you're living out as good as you could as a mom?
Whoa.
Like that question, oh dang, right? Yeah. So that question, which you can choose to answer after I say this bit or not, that question creates an immense amount of, even you just saying whoa, like it creates an immense amount of conflict and discomfort. And it might even feel uncomfortable to say, but once you do, like, it's out there. And I think once it's out there and the awareness is there, our brains tend to want to get rid of that conflict. And so how are you going to solve it? Are you going to deprioritize the value, or are you going to work on it?
Yeah.
Right.
So, okay, that was a good example. Tell me some of the other, because you're a question guy, so I'm assuming you're probably coming up with a deck or some sort of things that help people have the questions that create dissonance, that create, like, what, how do you, I think I semi-understand, maybe, I don't want to be confidently wrong, but this is the question, is the architecture behind a question that creates meaningful conversations different than a question that creates matter in the conversation?
I think that if you had ChatGPT generate 100 questions randomly, and you were to sort them into 3 categories, is this primarily asking about the past, about the present, or about the future? You would be able to do it. So like questions are like some of them are a little fuzzy and not totally sortable, but like for the most part, you're like, yeah, that clearly, like, what's a story from a camping trip? Like, great, past. What's taking up lots of your brain space right now? Present. What is something you would like to do before January 1st next year? very
Mm.
obviously future oriented. And so when you ask a future focused question, it's almost like I've worked on a prototype of a deck.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like super not being very verbal about these because I'm going to do like a pretty gigantic, fun reveal and mega launch of these probably in the fall, in October, but they're awesome. And it is, so it's, but future focused.
Future
So the
focus.
questions that are asking people about what they want, what they aspire to, what they would like to have happen, what would they do if, those kinds of questions start to have people talking about something that hasn't happened yet, but they would like it to happen. And so the
Mm.
dissonance is, I've just said I want this to happen, or I'd like to commit to this, or this is something. Let's see an example. What's something you'd like to start doing? As
Mm.
actually, let's just play with this. So Heather, what is
Okay.
something you would like to start doing?
Writing every day.
Ooh. About?
A book for young professionals, but that's hype,
What?
but mixed with biblical scripture. So like kind of a devotional
Ooh,
mixed with workplace.
cool. So saying that out loud, particularly, I think the effect of cognitive dissonance. I don't think there's some very like funky studies that would point to the effect of cognitive dissonance when you're in public is much higher than if you're just in private. Because if you're just like in your own head journaling, what's something you'd like to do more of, then you won't look like a fool to all your podcast listeners when they ask you 2 years from now, like, hey, I just listened to a 2-year-old episode that said you were going to write a book. Like, have you even started that book? Because it's possible. Watch this. If you're not watching the video, if you're only listening, I'm pulling out my iPhone and I'm saying, hey Siri, remind me in 365 days to ask Heather Italiano how far along she is in this book that she would like to write. So like the knowledge that this is now going to, on June 24th, 2026, I'm going to ping you one way or another and ask, like, creates enough cognitive dissonance. You might not start writing the book, but you will create some sort of change in your mind. And it might be the book's not important to me and I'm not going to write it. But I think for
Yes.
me, the progress is actually like choose one way. The service of people is like pick one or the other. Don't just hold this as a possibility, like do it or don't do it. And so I think
Yes.
there's, yeah. So, but in terms of mechanics, like what words start those questions, that kind of stuff, like I think it's more the orientation of like what
The
time
future.
frame are you asking about?
I also love this because you're almost designing you're almost giving the person who's um, answering the question. How do I, let me think about how I'm articulate this. You're giving someone who's answering a little bit of permission to say, to give the other person a chance to contribute back to them. Like, so when you asked me that question and you just showed it to me, I had a very quick moment of, I knew I had a choice in what I was going to say. Like, and you have a choice of, am I going to voice this scary thing, or am I going to keep it inside? Because your brain knows the moment you put it out there, it becomes real. And when you put it out there, you're also inviting other people into your future. So not only is this wonderful because it's like it's editing the future, because it's giving me the choice after I've said it, am I going to actually go and act on this? But it's also giving who is listening to that answer the opportunity to contribute and be a part of that future. Because I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I'm so glad you showed that, because you've been teasing those online, and I can't tell you how many times I've gone to Amazon and been like, "Future, we connect." I'm like, "Where are they?" But I love that because I've used the cards so often in the connecting conversations that I have around your learning in service of adding value back to that person. But sometimes when the questions stay in the present or the past, and I didn't even know that this was why, it's harder for you to think of a way to contribute based on a story that you're telling me from a camping trip 20 years ago. But
Yeah,
I
there's like
am
recall.
learning,
Yeah.
yes, when you're sharing with me something about your future, it it's immediately giving me opportunities and probably ideas on how I can help you get there.
100%. So it's like turns anybody who's listening, they become antenna for what you want in the future. So if I know what you want to do more of, I can, like, my check-ins and my small talk before a meeting now turns
Yeah.
into like, how's the book going, Heather? It's like I'm able to like follow and track the progress toward the intended future that you shared. But if I don't know that, I just ask you, how was your weekend? Past tense, right? So you want a little more of a sneak peek of this? Let me walk you through
Mm-hmm.
something that's kind of cool. So the color code for these cards are going to be, there's possibility questions, process questions, and then really practical questions. So let me walk you through an example of one of these for your book. So if a young professional picked up this book and they finished reading it, what might change in their state? So in terms of their like posture toward life, what might shift or change?
The few things that hit, I'm going to just say with what came first:
Mm-hmm.
spiritual confidence, strengthened faith, and a very practical common sense guide for decisions.
Cool. So this is lovely. So possibility question, right? So this is like, what's possible if someone read the book and now you're like thinking about this and starting to get like a little bit more clear. And I have a feeling you've done some more thinking about this too offline, but starting to think a little about it here. So now drop down to process questions. Like, you're a mom, you're like a busy person, you've got life, family, like obligations. Like, what is a reasonable like cadence of writing for you? You say you want to write every day. Like, what time of day, what cadence, like when is this going to happen?
It would have to be morning. Reasonable is the word there, because that's very hard for me. I'm not a very routine and disciplined person. So to
Mm-hmm.
reasonably write every day, it might be reasonable for a lot of people, but it's very unreasonable for me. But
Mm.
that would be it. Like, I 6
Mm-hmm.
o'clock in the morning when I have 30 minutes before my son wakes up.
Yeah.
That's my most productive brain space.
Regardless of when the sun rises, I call that the golden hour.
Oh, yes.
You wake up before your kids are up. You're like, oh, wow. Did I get out the door to go on a quick workout before kid woke up or not? Okay, so that's a little bit more of a process question. So now we're like
Okay.
honing in on, okay, we got like some larger purpose possibility around writing the book, and the process around writing is like 6 a.m. is kind of the window. Like, if it's going to happen, even if I give myself grace and I don't write every day, if I'm going to write every day, I've just said that it's probably going to be at 6 a.m. And so practically, if you were to write tomorrow at 6 a.m., because 6 a.m. like for sure is going to come tomorrow, 100%, it's happening. So 6 a.m. tomorrow is happening. What are you going to write on or write with? Is it a Google Doc or a notebook? Like, how will you actually write? Where will you write?
I am
Ooh, yeah. What is
in
that thing called? Those are great.
the remarkable. It's
Yes.
my Mother's Day gift. My husband's a wonderful gift giver. I have been writing by hand in this.
Cool. Super fun. I love this.
Practical.
So it sounds like you have been writing. It's something that you wanted to
Yeah.
start doing, but you've been doing it. So you want to do it more of it.
Yes.
And so you could get, and there's like, all I did there was go from like a very zoomed out high level, like not practical at the possibility question, and then process like, okay, I learned a little bit about your like habits in life and when this might happen in terms of how it might happen. And then the practical is like, you get really specific. So you go from literally zoomed out to a bit more zoomed in to a bit more zoomed in. And there's probably, I'm having this aha, like right now as we're recording, there's probably the, um, the finest tip pen question that's like the fourth category, which is a closed question, which is, Heather
Mm.
Italiano, will you commit to waking up and writing tomorrow at 6 a.m.?
I like this. And now I'm feeling so much dissonance to say yes.
Yeah. You
Right?
can say
Yeah.
no too, though. It's
I
very important
could.
for a choice to
Yes.
be a no as well. And for you to be like, no,
Yes.
I'm like going to a wedding.
No, there,
Yeah.
I'm not going to a wedding and I'm not waking my son up extra early for camp. There is zero reason that would keep me from doing that other than myself. So the answer is yes.
Cool. And you could get even more practical with this. So this is the whole like as I'm this launch and like the focus for the Connector Summit, and this whole idea is I'm really brewing and kind of circling around this idea of future focused facilitation. We're honing in of like, I could also ask you right now, like you have your Remarkable right there in your hands. Like something new will strike you at 6 a.m. But right now, if you were to write like the first 3 words of what you're going to write tomorrow, like give yourself a sentence completion. What are like the first 3 words that you toss out there to kind of kick off your writing? It's giving yourself a prompt.
Oh, that's a very difficult question. The first three
Mm-hmm.
words,
Yeah.
oh man, you're surfacing the fact that and this is one of the reasons I struggle to write is I'm so early in the process that when I sit down and write, it's like what's hot on my mind. And then but when I start to discern like what I should be writing in that moment, I, my brain's like, no, because
Mm.
the discernment stage of work is extremely frustrating for me. But I don't know what the first 3 words are. Maybe it's so, something around the concept of hard work. This is an idea that I'm obsessed with right now. Like
Okay.
hard work isn't bad work. That may
Okay.
be my first few
You're
words.
watching you work through that, which was beautiful. Watching you work through that just taught me something that's like a helpful reminder that I would love to learn live with you right now. And that is when ChatGPT first exploded and got popular, I hired a group of developers to create the exact opposite of ChatGPT. So it's a AI bot that uses GPT-4 to only ask you questions. It will not give you answers. No matter what you try to do to conjure it in, like it only asks you questions that get you to reflect on some aspect of your future and walk you through. And I was the first couple iterations of using it, I was getting really annoyed because it kept going too practical, too fast. So I think that question, if I could critique the last question I asked, what are the first 3 words that you're going to write tomorrow? Too practical. You're like, not like, we're not ready for that. Like, so we got to zoom out a little bit. And so this is, I think, some part of the mastery of, and I still feel like I'm actually learning and mastering, which is why I want to host a Connector Summit focus around the idea of future focused facilitation is there was probably a much better question to ask that was 3 or 4 steps above the
Mm.
hyper practical. That would be like, just what do you want someone to feel reading the first page of your book? Like, do you want to feel scared, excited, intrigued? Because if you answer that, then you're like, the chances that you can get a little bit closer to what the first 3 words might be, you'd be like, oh, like I have a story about this. And when I tell my friends this story, it always starts with like the first 15 minutes after I woke up, I blank, a little bit more than 3 words. Do you see the idea? Like so that the
Yes.
wisdom is in the nuance, right? So I'm
Yeah.
always trying to get like, what's the right question to ask the right person at the right moment? And I think this is, in terms of creating conversations that actually edit the future, I think this is a big part of it, is honing in on what level of like possibility, process, or practicality you're hitting somebody at, and being able to discern that. This is
Well,
going to be
I
like a
was already
7-hour
excited.
podcast here,
I
Heather.
know. I was just in my head. I'm listening to. I'm like I'm hearing Chad Littlefield say, "I need let's end this party while it's still fun." So no, I'm going to be respectful of your time. But I just have to say, let me finish with 2 things. I asked ChatGPT, by the way, I've named Quinn, but only because I asked ChatGPT, "Would you like a name so I don't have to refer to you as ChatGPT?" And it said, "Yeah, what would you like?" And I said, "You pick, it's your name." And it said Quinn. So I asked Quinn if you had the capability to interview YouTuber and connecting expert Chad Littlefield on a ChatGPT podcast, what would you be more curious to learn from him that you don't already know? And this is what it said it would ask you. It said,
Okay.
Quinn would ask you, in your experience designing conversations that matter, have you seen connection backfire, where getting too personal and vulnerable too quickly shuts people down instead of opening up? How do you navigate the line between meaningful and too much too soon?
Mm.
Isn't that interesting? That's what it would ask
It
you.
is interesting. I would answer that though with um, 50 out of 100 people fear that that will be the outcome, but only 1 out of 100 times is that the outcome. Is it
Mm.
too much, too fast, too soon? Which somebody defined once for me, defined trauma as too much, too fast, too soon. So I think there you can have like
Oh, yeah.
conversational trauma. You can like go like, whoa, like way too much, too fast, too soon. Like I'm ordering lunch at Wendy's and I'm like, hey, like I'm like to the cashier, like I'm just trying to connect with people more. Like, what are you really struggling with right now? It's like, now the reason I'm sharing this example is like that question is in the We Connect cards deck. I've thought about taking it out because it's intense. That's an intense question. What's your greatest struggle right now? What's one of your greatest struggles? If you ask that to 100 Wendy's cashiers at 100 different Wendy's, a way higher percentage than you would think would like take a breath and actually answer that question. Way higher percentage than you would actually think. And it's not even a recommendation to do that. Like, in fact, probably don't. But what it says to me about like human psychology, our desire to be seen, heard, understood is like, even when you throw quite a lot at someone quite fast, quite soon, people are way more open and receptive to sharing than we would typically expect. And there
Mm.
are, 45 ways to disarm and increase safety and whatnot to really not make that too much, too fast, too soon. But even in just the extreme, you just like go in for it. I think people would be really, I should do a YouTube video about this. Like I asked
Yeah.
100 people, what's your greatest struggle right now? And X amount of people answered.
Yes. And the point of it isn't that that 99 people didn't have a negative reaction. The point of it is that 99 people were probably really glad that you asked.
100%. There
Yeah.
was, and Uber and Lyft tell you how many rides somebody has given, how many drives they've done. So in this person's car, they've given 7,500 rides, which they corrected me on Lyft, but another 7,500 on Uber. And so out of 15,000 rides, I ended up finding that he was diagnosed with terminal cancer 3 years ago. And as I was getting out of the car, so he shared all the stuff. I asked a couple questions. Like I didn't think anything of the conversation. Like it felt like a relatively like typical conversation where he shared something intense about having a terminal illness, but like it wasn't an overly notable conversation. But as I was opening up the door and getting out of the car, he goes, "Hey, thank you. No one has ever asked me about that." So 15,000 plus people sat in the back of his car, and 0 times was he asked any question that brought about the most important thing in his entire life right now.
Wow.
0 out of 15,000. That's a really, really small percentage, right?
Wow.
And so if you want to break through the noise, like ask a real question that you're really curious about, that you also think the other person might appreciate being asked. Because it's not curiosity. It can't be the selfish, like, I want to ask you this because I think it'll be like, no. What might actually serve you? And seeing questions as an act of service and an act of love rather than anything else. By the way, my ChatGPT suggested the name Quill.
What?
Quinn and Quill.
That's
Which
crazy.
Quill's kind of cute, like penmanship, like writing, like Quill. It's kind of good.
Oh my gosh. I think the whole world, let's start a trend. I wonder, but my ChatGPT knows it's me and I'm a woman. Maybe it chose Quinn because that's a seemingly female name, and Quill is like maybe a more masculine take on that name. I don't know.
Okay,
I don't know.
maybe at the Connector Summit we'll do this experiment. Someone's gonna get mad at this because this is going to use a lot of compute and GPU energy. But if you had 1,000 people all ask the same question to ChatGPT, seeing the responses would be very interesting. And like the differences between them. Like, so you could ask name, but I'm also just thinking like, what's your greatest struggle right now to 15,000 people? And what would be the impact of that? Like ask the same question to 15,000 versions of ChatGPT or Claude.
Let's
Kind of
do it.
interesting.
Let's do it. That's the opening fun energizer. I'll be at the Connector Summit, so I'm excited to see. Let's end this party while it's still fun.
Have an
No,
awesome day.
I'm so grateful for your time. This was so fun. This is so fun.
This
You
was
you
fun.
are one of, when I think of a word for you, I think of generous. What you are contributing to people like me who are, entrepreneurs starting a business, who lead workshops, and I don't think I do a workshop without something that came from We Connect or YouTube, and it's helped me grow my business, but it's helped me add so much value to the people in the room. So thank you.
Thank you. I liked hearing that. Can you write it down with a quill and send it to my wife? See you, Heather. Thank you.